here tailgating at the Steelers game, making sure that everybody is registered. Now, Denise, you just registered 2 voters the other day. How did you do it?
I said, are you registered to vote? And they said, no. And I said, why not? They love Trump. And I'm like, register. So on the spot, we went, because we're in Pennsylvania, we went to vote.pa, and we registered them right online. All they needed was a license. So like that, 2 people getting out, making sure they vote, and they're doing mail-in because they might get stuck at work.
So wear your Trump hat in public, to your gas station, to your supermarket, and whenever you meet a like-minded conservative, always ask, are you registered to vote at your current address? Thank you. Good job. And let's elect Donald Trump and deliver Pennsylvania. Let's go.
I love the qualifier.
This is Scott Pressler and Denise.
If ever you meet a like-minded conservative, then ask them if they're registered. If you meet a smooth brain Kamala Harris, Tim Walz supporter, don't ask them if they're registered. People, that's Scott Pressler, for those of you who don't know. I discovered him during the last few months, and dude apparently is like epic ground game in terms of mobilizing people to get out and vote for Donald Trump. So much so that people say if Trump wins the election and he wins Pennsylvania, and touch wood, he should, that rhymes. People are crediting this to the legwork being done by Scott Pressler on the ground. Now, I've been in discussion. I DM'd Scott Pressler. I think we're looking like it's going to happen, that he might come on this week. I don't want to put too much pressure on him. No, it's not like that type of thing where I'm calling him out. We've been talking about it. I think we're going to find a date. So Scott should be on at some point this week. And so we can talk about what the heck is going on. People, vote like your constitutional republic depends on it, because it does. Okay. People, I've been treading water as exercise, like a geriatric. And I say this with no judgment to old people. It's just that, when you're young and you're mountain biking and playing squash and running ultra marathons, you don't like to envision yourself as like the old dude in the pool treading water with weighted ankle things. That was me this morning, because my knee is still excruciatingly painful. Like, I feel like Will Ferrell out of, I think it was the Austin Powers, where he's in the back going like, I'm in quite a lot of pain. That has been my life for the last 9 days since I level 2, level 3 injured my MCL. So like a geezer, I'm sitting there treading water with 2-pound ankle weights and feeling demoralized and whatever. But it doesn't matter. We've got an amazing show today. We're going to have on Jessica Rose and potentially another guest, Adrian, to talk about what's going on in Australia as relates to potential contaminants that shouldn't be found in a certain jibby jab that ought not have been mass administered via mandates. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But first, I just want to bring up one thing. I was talking to Jess Rose. You may know her from previous episodes, interviews. She's amazing. I was talking to her before the show got started, and I said, I didn't think we could ever find someone who could make me hate a politician more than Justin Trudeau. And along came Kamala. Is my reply in this tweet? Hold on. Kamala is on, Donald Trump is on something of a, I don't want to say a victory tour, but he's on a campaign tour that is producing some of the most memorable, relatable, sincere moments you can possibly imagine. Kamala Harris is on something of a reactionary apology tour. Oh, they didn't tell me that they didn't hide my message. View hidden replies. They didn't, but I don't see my reply to. Oh, that's because it's not Kamala Harris's tweet. She's on something of an apology tour because she's an idiot. And whenever she opens her mouth, she sticks both feet in it. She's now, as you can see from this this image right here, she's souls to the polls, putting faith into action. I mean, it's so cynical and it's so contrived that you wouldn't believe it if you haven't lived through the last week of her campaign. So we'll get back to that in a second. This is her moment from last week, which, as far as I'm concerned, forget her screaming "never again" like a cackling lunatic at like a Hitlerian political figure at a podium. Forget that. She said this last week at one of her rallies where As they started talking about abortion, someone in the crowd said, "Jesus is Lord," to which she glibly said something which was in stark contrast to her promise never to insult Catholics that she sent by way of promotional video to the Al Smith dinner. Check this out.
And maybe don't say anything negative about Catholics.
I would never do that, no matter where I was.
You guys are at the wrong rally.
Look at her smarmy, arrogant, pompous face. What are you, catching flies with your mouth, Kamala?
No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
All right, so after literally insulting God, she realized, oh shit, that's a bad soundbite. Here, let's get another one. No sound though, because every time you open your mouth, you sink yourself, Kamala. Just a picture. Souls to the polls, putting faith in action. This is her apology after having insulted, I don't know how many Christians there are in America by way of percentage. Is it 30%? This is how she makes up for her absolute idiocy. Hands down, tied for the top 5 most awful, despicable politicians on earth. Who's on top of that list? Justin Trudeau, Hillary Clinton, Chrystia Freeland, Kamala Harris. Number 5, we have to go with Gavin Newsom. I don't even put Joe Biden on the top 5 awful politicians. Yes, Satan collects souls. All right, before we get into the show and our guests coming in here, I'm going to thank one of our 2 sponsors in the beginning of the show, and then the second sponsor, we're going to thank later. Oh, am I an idiot? Did I screw something up here? Hold on a second. Yeah, I've screwed something up. For goodness sake. Give me a second. I don't have my window open in the backdrop. There's going to be one special, interesting sponsor in a second, but it perfectly segued into this show because it's the wellness company. We're talking about COVID. We're talking about the awful things that our government has done to us. Let's get the disaster kit and open the window right here, peeps. Yeah, there it is. Sharing the screen. The wellness company. Sorry, I don't have my thing up, and this was the segue into the COVID talk. We're going to get there anyhow. People, natural disasters are the new reality. From Maui fires to Hurricane Helene, we are seeing catastrophic disasters take out entire towns in 24 hours with minimal warning, resulting in lack of basic resources. I get it. We are wired to think it won't happen here, and then in a blink, you are in survival mode. We didn't get hit by the hurricane out here, by the way, but as the hurricane was hitting the West Coast, we were getting spring up tornadoes on the East Coast that actually 20 miles north of me killed 4 people. It's wild. Being prepared in advance is your best defense against the unexpected, and clearly we can't rely on the government. The wellness company's emergency kit completely removes the gatekeeper and allows you to quell your panic by providing you with a personalized mini pharmacy in the convenience of your own home. Bacterial infections, staph, bite wounds, UTIs, that is urinary tract infections for those of you who don't know. Strep throat, respiratory illnesses, you are no longer at the mercy of waiting rooms, doctors, etc. Getting your emergency kit is easy, fully digital, all from the convenience of your couch. You fill out a form, a pharmacist review and approves it, and then you receive your kit in 2 weeks. The medical board approved guidebook crafted by Dr. Peter McCullough tells you exactly what to do. It's preparedness simplified. Invest in your family's safety and get yours today. TWC. I got to remember that. TWC.health/Viva, and promo code Viva gets you $30 off and free shipping. Okay. Let's see if Jessica's in the house. I see 2 people in the backdrop. Okay, we're here. Jessica, Adrian, McRae, as you so see fit, release your audio and release your video.
Release the audio.
Let slip the dogs. I'm screwing up the expression. What is it? Wreak havoc and let loose the dogs of war. I think I can hear Adrian. Adrian.
G'day, guys. How are you?
Very good, very good. Are you trying to not disable your camera?
I've got my camera off. I'm in a restaurant in Eurasia somewhere.
What restaurant and how many stars on the Michelin Guide? I'm joking. Let me just make sure. Jess, you can hear Adrian, right?
Yes.
So other than finding a way to put an avatar up, I think we can just, if you don't want to activate the camera, we can just have a call. You'll be the mic call-in guy, and it'll be me and Jess who can be seen. Is that good? Unless you
cool.
want.
Hey, I've only probably got about 10 minutes here, so
Okay,
I
well,
apologize for.
Don't worry about it. Let's use your 10 minutes, and then I'll have Jess afterwards. So, okay, my understanding, my overview of what's going on here is that a while back, Jess was on talking about the DNA that apparently might have been discovered in the COVID jibby jabs. The question is to what was, how bad it was, what it could lead to, et cetera, et cetera. In Australia now, from what I understand, Adrian, there were some inquiries being done or some discoveries as to the levels of DNA exceeding certain government limits, but then the government comes out and says misinformation, disinformation, move along, nothing to see here.
That's pretty much exactly it. We the DNA vials were shipped via a chain of command through to laboratories in Canada. Actually, some Canadian vials, US vials, and Australian vials all managed to find their way into Dr. David Speaker's labs in Canada. And David was used a different testing method than has been traditionally used, certainly in the Australian Therapeutic Goods Administration, and our government's drug administrators are equivalent of your FDA. And he used a method that is probably far more appropriate to identify the DNA contamination in these shots. And so when he found this, he had his work replicated and backed up by a number of scientists all around the world, actually. And so one of our members of Parliament in Canberra sent a letter to the Prime Minister saying, this letter was, he wrote a letter basically asking for these jabs to be suspended until we could confirm or deny whether or not these new contamination findings were real or not. Like the contamination findings they discovered were up to 145 times over the Australian legal limit of DNA contamination. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little muffled, but it doesn't matter. I think we're getting the gist of it.
Okay, so one of our members of Parliament had a letter signed initially by 26 co-signatories of some of the great scientists, doctors, virologists, immunologists from all around the world, including some human rights lawyers and attorneys from all over the world. He didn't get a response from our Prime Minister. And so he wrote a second letter, which was signed by another 26, ended up being 52 scientific experts from around the world, including Jessica, who's on the call with us. So thank you, Jessica, for being a part of this. And after not hearing anything back again from the Prime Minister, ignored his letters once again. I sit on the city council of a very important geostrategic town in Australia in the northwest. It's the biggest commodity export port on the planet. We ship out a large percentage of the world's iron ore from my town. And so we had some people actually on our council that had been vaccine injured. And so we put a motion to our local government to debate Friday sort of 10 days ago. And our motion was to basically write a letter to the Prime Minister asking, well, firstly, why hasn't he responded to our Member of Parliament asking for the suspension of these vaccines? But we also put some things in there to make sure that we notified every council, every city council, every city shire across the entire nation of Australia to make sure they were given the same information that we were given, and then have also notified the health ministers of all the states, not notify the federal health minister, the Secretary of Health in Canberra, and also notifying our local healthcare providers that actually were administering these shots in pharmacies and in the hospitals and medical clinics. And so we got our motions passed by the local council with a vote of 5-2. And now that's obviously, we're in the process of sending out letters to literally thousands of letters across Australia to all local government administrations across the country. It's going to be very hard for the Prime Minister and certainly the health ministers of the various states to continue to ignore this science, because one thing we put in our motion was we didn't allow them just to tell us that it's safe and effective, and the FDA and Canada's health regulators and Australia's health regulators have tested it and they know it's safe, because we actually got through a Freedom of Information request we actually got some information from the Australian government to find that they were using the quantitative PCR test to measure the contamination levels of these mRNA shots of the Moderna and the Pfizer. Now, Moderna holds the world patent for removing DNA fragments from mRNA solutions. And in Moderna's own patent, it says you cannot use qPCR to identify or calculate or quantify the volume of DNA fragments in these vials. And that's what our Australian government has been using. And that's what our Australian government has been gaslighting every senator and member of parliament that have asked questions for the last 4 years about the efficacy and safety of these jabs. And so we've kind of caught them out now. We found that they are using outdated and irrelevant methods to do the testing. So, look, the Australian government right now is on the ropes for sure, and they're using smearing and the usual ad hominem and all sorts of things to try and worm their way out of giving us an answer. But of course, as our letters go out across the country in the coming week, I think we'll see some major turnaround and some major things happening within Australian political circles.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, Jess is going to explain some of the more technical side of the science behind this, because I have my questions, similar ones to the last time. But are any country on Earth now that acknowledges formally the high levels of DNA contaminants in the shots?
That's a really great question. I'm not sure. Jess is probably better positioned to answer that. Certainly, I think certainly in Australia, we're the first level of government. Even though we're only local government, we've obviously got 3 levels of government in Australia: local, state, and federal. But we're the first level of government in Australia that is, brought forward in a majority vote to challenge this whole paradigm of safe and effective. And certainly, we're asking the question of our federal government and of our state governments and all the health ministers across the country to please explain. And you cannot use the old, outdated science that you have been using for the past 4 years to gaslight doctors, to gaslight anyone that asks these questions, because we now have the science, which has been replicated all over the world now, to make them, to take away their ability, basically, to lie to us and tell us that we know it's safe, we've already done the testing, we know the testing doesn't work, we know the testing is irrelevant. And so, there's certainly, like I said in our debate on the night of our when we sat in the chambers, you either you're incompetent or you're lying, and either one is not a good outcome for you. So you need to come through with the truth and tell us exactly what the fuck is going on here.
Right. And Adrian, you are a member. What's your position again in terms of all of this?
I'm a businessman here, but I ran in a by-election, and it's just basically city council. So it's basically what you call city hall, I suppose, in the US. Elected to local government in the region of the town of Port Hedland, which is the northwest of Western Australia. The reason it sort of has impact from our perspective in Australia is that the town itself, we contribute more to the national economy than any region or town in all of Australia. And because we contribute something like between 4 to 5% of the entire country's national revenue base in taxes and royalties, the town punches way above its weight for influence in Canberra. And so this is what's made the state premier, which is what you guys call a governor, and certainly and the prime minister are certainly very nervous right now. And the TGA has put out its stock standard response saying, "Oh, this science is fake and conspiracy and all the usual nonsense they come out with." But of course they haven't hit us with any science. They're just trying to do their usual gaslighting, and it's a. I'd hate to be an Australian health minister or someone that's in the Australian Therapeutic Goods Administration at the moment, because they certainly they've never been put in the sort of position that they've been put in the last week.
Okay, amazing. Adrian, where can people follow you? Jess and I are going to talk about this and flesh out the details. Where can people follow you for progress as this advances in Australia?
Look, I appreciate that, but I kind of, as Jess knows, I kind of operate in the shadows a little bit. I'm not big on the social media. I don't do many of these things. I'm sort of, probably. I mean, me personally, I have a council page. It's just on Facebook. Again, it's not something that I really ever promoted. It's I think it's Adrian McRae for Port Hedland Council, something like that on Facebook. But yeah, look, I sort of I've never been a big social media user, to be honest. So I'm not really one to promote myself. But look, there are websites going out. Australians Demand Answers. .com.au is the website we're using to direct all traffic around Australia to for councillors and members of government, members of local government, members of state government, members of federal government to go there and find all the information, including the reports that Jessica and other wonderful scientists and humanitarian legal minds around the world have signed on to. So yeah, probably the best place would be to AustraliansDemandAnswers.com.au.
Okay, amazing. Adrian, thank you very much.
Look, thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you for supporting what we're doing down here, and it's certainly the world is watching, and it means a lot to us that we've had a lot of support. Thank you, Jess, for sharing. We're up to somewhere between 30 and 40 million views on what we're doing in the last week. So, I think the biggest ever council viewing in Port Hedland. Before that was in the hundreds, not even in the thousands. So to go from something like 500 was the most ever views to tens of millions is it's really it shows where the psyche of the world is at right now, and we're certainly we're humbled to have all the support. It's coming in from all over the world. So thank you you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk to you, and I'm sorry that I couldn't talk in a more visual and a more relaxed setting than where I am.
Don't worry about it. That's what Jess is for, and we'll carry on and fill in the details.
Thanks so much, Adrian. It's like it means everything.
Love you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for all you're doing, and absolutely honoured to stand beside you in all this.
All right. Have a good one, Adrian. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
All right, Jess. Now, let's see I'm going to kick him. I hope that doesn't do it for good. Okay, there we go. Everybody, so there was no video for that because it might be an improvement to suggest with Rumble Studio that if they don't activate their camera, at least we have like an avatar space. Everybody, Jess, you all, I'm looking at the chat and everybody knows Jess already, but for those who are new to the channel, Jess, who have not yet met you, who are you? Why are you here? And the other question was going to be, what is your title so that people can assess your credentials while listening to your knowledge?
I guess I go by Jessica Rose, PhD now, but I have a few degrees. I have 5, and so I guess I'm speaking with you and publicly with a lot of other people these days because I've had my eye on what's been going on for the last 4 years in terms of looking at pharmacovigilance databases. And I guess I'm kind of uniquely qualified to speak on the subject matter of what's been going on because of my background. So I started in applied math, I moved to immunology, did a PhD in computational biology, and then I did a postdoc in biochem and also molecular biology. So I've had my toes in a few ponds, and I suppose yeah, I mean, yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, but the words you told me that I could share with my Amelia so that no one could doubt your credentials, it was come on, what was it? It was a
biologist. Oh, yeah.
Computational, say that again.
Computational biologist.
Okay, that's what I like. Computational biologist, PhD. Anyone who wants to undermine you're not an immunologist or whatever, go suck a lemon, whoever wants to say something like that.
No, you don't need to suck a lemon. You can just go to my website, Jessica's Universe, and look at my CV. I'm one of the people who actually has a CV online, and you can see what I've done over the course of my 30-year academic career and what I've published.
Well, we're going to get there in a second. If I go like this, click here, It'll unacceptable, Jessica. I don't want to get too far. I want to keep your Substack here. All right, Jess. We're going to get to your Substack. We're going to get to a couple of links that I have pulled up in the backdrop. I don't know how long ago it was that you were on where the world discovered that there were DNA fragments or contamination that had been found in certain vials or certain tests of the COVID jab. And when you came on the last time, the question I asked you is, first of all, like I'm an idiot. I you learn from scratch, and I always just took for granted that I presume there's always DNA in any shot, especially if it's a vaccine. I presume there would be like the DNA of whatever it is that it's trying to immunize you against. And I don't even understand what the risk of having a DNA contaminant in a jab would be. If you could dumb it down for someone like me, like what is the DNA component contaminant? Why is it a risk? Like when I eat a steak, I'm eating DNA, I guess, and that doesn't alter my own DNA. That's not a risk. That's a necessity. So like, what is the DNA contaminant that was found a while back? What's the risk, and what does it mean?
All right. So first of all, what's important for everyone to know is how it got in there. Well, maybe after I describe that, I should mention that this has been reproduced in at least 4 labs around the world. And by this, I mean investigating whether or not there is DNA in Pfizer and or Moderna vials. And in every single vial that has been tested, DNA has been discovered. And it's not really supposed to be there.
And just to confirm what you're saying, like I just, one of the ones that'll corroborate this is you go to a fact check from Reuters, if it ever comes up, because my computer's very slow. Okay, here we go. And then, the fact check says no evidence for vaccine DNA risk raised by Florida Surgeon General, because this has been an issue for a little while. But then, they confirm the relevant. There's no evidence to suggest that residual DNA fragments in mRNA COVID-19 vaccines pose a health risk to.
Yeah. So can I make a comment about that? This is one of the things I'm becoming really good at detecting. They're very, very good at being sneaky. So read that sentence again. Yeah. There's no evidence to suggest that residual DNA fragments in mRNA COVID-19 vaccines pose a health risk. So they don't actually say there's no DNA, do they?
No. In fact, they confirm that there is residual DNA. Like that confirms what I'm going to show in a bit is the disputed fact by the Australian government. So we're operating now not on the fact check that no, there's no residual, there's no DNA. They're admitting there is DNA. They call it residual as if to minimize that. It's residual, don't worry. But there's no evidence that it causes health risks, as if you could even have that evidence in such a short period of time after discovering residual DNA. So it is not a disputable fact that there is, call it residual, there's DNA in some of these shots or all of these shots.
Yeah, and this is what we anticipated. I think Kevin even wrote this down, Kevin McKernan. I'll tell you who he is if you don't know in a sec. They move the goalpost. It's like first, complete denial. No, there's no DNA. And then when they have to admit it, because Health Canada, the EMA, and I believe the FDA, and maybe even the MHRA in the UK, have publicly admitted that there is DNA in the vials and specific fragments of DNA called SV40, which I'll get to. So this isn't hypothesis anymore. This isn't a bunch of, anti-vaxxers saying a bunch of stuff. This has been confirmed by the regulatory bodies and these health agencies that were pushing these products. But now, if you've seen any of my recent presentations, you'll see the next step. The goalpost moves a little further and they say, well, there is, but you don't have to worry about it.
It's residual. They may as well just call it innocent DNA. Yeah, there's innocent residual innocuous DNA after having told us that there was no DNA. Right. And you have to get to the SV40 part we talked about the last time. But there, and I'm reading the chat, there should be no DNA in a vaccine is the bottom line.
In my opinion, correct. If it's an mRNA vaccine, there shouldn't be. But I mean, according to the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, and these other regulatory bodies, you're allowed to have a certain amount at some threshold. But this is the clincher that I'll get to. I'll just say it and then I'll explain how it got in and come back. Mm-hmm. Those thresholds that are in place are for naked DNA. They're not for lipid nanoparticle encapsulated DNA.
Okay, so hold on. Naked DNA versus LPN lipid nano LNP. What's the difference?
So naked DNA is easily degradable by the body. You know, like it's going to be readily removed. It's not going to pose a problem. Lipid nanoparticle encapsulated DNA, these little fat bubbles that are the second part of the two-part technology involved in these COVID-19 shots, they are meant to only have modified mRNA in them. But I'll tell you how they got in, where we discovered this. They also contain DNA, specific DNA fragments that come from the manufacturing process. So this is by design. The way to get this genetic material into cells in order to command the cells by giving them the instructions with this RNA to make protein. So you're fast track Trojan horsing foreign DNA fragments, a lot of them, according to what we're finding, directly into the cytosol of cells. And potentially they're going to the nucleus of cells, which is a whole other ballgame.
Now that's the part that I think I'm slowly piecing together, is that the lipid nanoparticle, the LNP, encapsulated whatever it was that they were wanting the body to absorb, and the lipid nanoparticle is what facilitated absorption into, do I say the molecules of the human, or is that wrong?
They get into the cells.
Into the cell. Sorry, that's what I meant. Okay. And now if I can go back to dumb it down to my first example, there's DNA in steak, you eat it, it's easily dissolved and it gets digested and whatever, but you're not creating a way to import that foreign DNA into your actual cells through this lipid nanoparticle that...
No, they're completely different things. Yeah,
okay.
It's completely different processes. Fat metabolism versus like transfection. So yeah, it's completely different.
And now, hypothetically, one were to compare or to look at a traditional vaccine, so let's say the polio vaccine, would there be DNA that you would expect to find in that because they're using inert trace amounts of the illness itself in order to trigger a response? Like, would you expect to find DNA in traditional vaccines?
I need to go back and see what, unless you can tell me. I don't know.
I have no idea. I'm just wondering if, like, yeah, if you would expect to in traditional vaccines, but there would be a good reason for it.
There's a whole bunch of vaccines that you would expect to see, you know, residual levels of DNA, I suppose. But like the claim to fame here and the heightened danger, in my opinion, is this new delivery system, these lipid nanoparticles. But I mean, we're just scratching the surface of what's been going on with the vaccine industry for like decades, right? Like we actually don't have good answers to a lot of really basic questions. So yeah.
How do you explain to someone who still fallaciously equates traditional vaccines like the polio vaccine with this new mRNA? Like I used the words and I said, like, okay, well, the technology is totally different. One was a traditional inert, I don't know if you call it particulate matter of the disease in order to trigger response. And this is a chemically induced, manufactured, tricking the body, which without even using, like, how would you oversimplify it to someone who says a vaccine is a vaccine is a vaccine?
Just, I don't know what else you could say other than it's not the same thing. It's like, it's protein versus genetic material wrapped in a lipid nanoparticle. It's not the same thing. It's completely different. It's like tickling the immune system with a foreign protein, inert, so-called, with an adjuvant in some cases, versus something else's genetic material wrapped in a fat bubble that's designed to get into. I mean, it's not the same thing. I don't know how.
I'm not wrong, and also if I wanted to tell this to somebody, that mRNA as a delivery mechanism had been tried and had systematic problems in animals throughout the past in terms of.
Yeah. There's so many. This is what I've been putting into my presentations that I've been given for like the last few weeks. It's There are so many what we call compendial standard issues remaining with this technology, and even the people in the biotech industry who are doing the research on these lipid nanoparticles haven't resolved the most basic issues, like what I'm now calling, because a colleague of mine introduced this to me. She's more of like a pharmacy side of this equation. The rate limiting step, which is like the bottleneck of the entire process of introducing foreign genetic material into a cell to make protein. And that's when the lipid nanoparticle gets into the cell. And by the way, it's not just one-to-one. You probably have a bunch of lipid nanoparticles, getting inside a cell simultaneously, and therefore you have more genetic material potentially being dumped. So they kind of get absorbed into the cell and stuffed into what we call an endosome. And as that endosome matures, the pH inside of it gets lower. And hypothetically, this is what we know, this is going to alter the lipid nanoparticle. It's a cationically charged guy, and that's going to enable the genetic material to be released. Basically, if you want to think of it this way, it pops the fat bubble, and therefore the payload, which is the genetic material inside it, is released into the cell, into the cytoplasm, where the ribosomes are going to be. And then that mRNA, the messenger RNA, which is basically the coding material for this spike protein or whatever, is trafficked to ribosomes, where those proteins are fabricated. So this endosomal maturing, the pH lowering, that whole process, we have no data on what's actually going on there. And basically what I'm saying is that we have no concept of dose. You can inject 30 micrograms of mRNA, modified mRNA, in a 300 microliter solution in a syringe into somebody's deltoid, and you have zero predictive power as to how much mRNA is going to get into cells and how much protein will subsequently be produced. So we have leaves rustling in the wind assays, like antibody detection assays, to kind of make a guess as to how the body is reacting based on this 30 microgram amount. But we don't actually have a dose, because that stuff that you're injecting isn't the stuff that the body's reacting to only. That stuff is the coding material for the stuff that the body will eventually react to. So I don't know if that's clear what I said, but it's kind of staggering that we, after years and billions of people were injected with this crap, we still don't have these very fundamental questions answered.
Well, let me answer your question as to whether or not it's clear with a meme.
And poor chlorophyll is caught in the middle of this.
Chlorophyll? More like borophyll.
I wanted to get the earlier part where he says, and that doesn't make the ribosomes happy. I think I understood enough of what you're saying to get angry again, and angry at myself, because they said.
Oh, right. I keep forgetting you got these shots. I'm sorry. I should be more sensitive.
Oh, don't worry about that. No. I have duped I have convinced myself that I got the early ones that were, didn't get refrigerated long enough or whatever it was.
Fine.
Yeah, and I looked my batch up, and it was there were literally zero events reported with that one, but it was like way early on. But it's using a new technology that had never been used to deliver a vaccine before, for a coronavirus for which they had never even been able to develop a vaccine before, after they changed the definition of vaccine so that everybody was left there saying, well, a vaccine is a vaccine is a vaccine. And now I understand what the lipid nanoparticle whole thing is about, and what you're describing, the lipid nanoparticle, so it can trick your body into absorbing it into the cells. And now what you're describing is, this is how it would have worked had what they delivered been the product that they tested, and then You go to the manufacturing, and then you start talking about manufacturing problems where they recalled millions of vials for reasons unknown, found foreign materials, foreign matter in these jab things because they were mass producing it with no quality control and producing hot batches that were literally killing people. It drives me freaking insane. And this is now, what are we, 4 years out?
Yeah.
And I still have to have conversations with people that say, well, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer because you don't like that. My goodness.
Well, tell your people who are saying that this, okay? This is the other, let's go back to the drawing board, immunology 101. You're never going to get better immunity with something that you inhale, like a respiratory pathogen, like colds, flus, and the SARS viruses. You're never going to get better protection other than natural infection because your mucosal immunity is all here, right? And you have to activate those factors in order to have the most potent response. If you inject something into your deltoid, you're activating completely different processes, and you're in fact bypassing the most vital. You're bypassing the innate immune system. The IgA is not made. It's more IgG and IgM, and it's like
IgA, IgG. What do those stand for again?
Immunoglobulins. These are the antibody types that we produce in response to certain pathogens. So you usually start out with an IgM, which is like a 5-pronged guy for cleaning up things, and then you class switch to IgG, or you start making IgG, which is like a Y shape. Never mind, it doesn't matter. But there are. It's just, if people had known, and why should anybody know this, right? All we were hearing was a herd immunity, and they didn't even know what that meant. If people had known that this is not the best way to get immunity against a SARS virus, they probably would have said, well, why would I get a shot that's not going to optimize my chances to not get sick? Especially since the shots are what they are, which is a new gene-based therapeutic. It's not really a vaccine. And if people still want to call it a vaccine, you can go ahead. I don't, because it's not.
And just so just to protect myself from the commie YouTube overlords, the chief medical officer of Ontario, Kieran Moore, admitted during a press conference, he called it a therapeutic. As he was saying, and he says, as he was admitting that the chance of myocarditis for the age bracket of 18 to 35 male or 18 to 30 male was 1 in 5,000, he says you have to weigh the pros and cons of this therapeutic before administering it. And that was, 3 years after administering it, and 6 months after admitting that they were not even distinguishing between hospitalized with COVID versus hospitalized from COVID. I don't know when people are going to go to jail, but I'll just repeat myself. Okay. And if I may ask you this, because I was going to pull up the Kathy Hochul clip where she's talking about sticking this stuff in 6-month-old babies and older. It's the same. I mean, I guess they have the dose or a third the dose for younger people.
No, it's the same junk. It's just less starting material, but it doesn't matter because it's like, we're talking about billions, maybe even trillions of molecules. It's like, it doesn't matter if you lower the dose by, to 10 micrograms. I mean, we should also talk about self-amplifying RNA products, which are now coming on the market, because that's scary. But can I just finish how this crap got into the vials in the first place? Because it's important that people understand this. You already said it. This has to do with good manufacturing practices. It also has to do with probably quite a few serious oopsies along the way. That's what I like to call them. So when you make this modified mRNA at large scale, you've probably heard about the bait and switch. Have you heard about this?
Yes, in terms of what Pfizer had gotten approved versus, it was, I forget which one was Comirnaty. That was the one that was approved, but the one that they were delivering was not. Let me rephrase this. The one that got approved was not what they were delivering, but they were passing it off as though it was and benefiting from the immunity that was granted to them. I think Comirnaty was the one that was approved, correct?
Okay, that's a facet, but what I'm talking about is that the actual material, the starting material to produce the modified mRNA that was packaged in the LNPs in the clinical trial, the Pfizer clinical trial, was not the same as the commercial products. So when they needed to upscale this crap, and this is after the Pfizer trials, which are already horribly questionable, that data, they needed to save money and they needed to save time. So a really good way to produce a lot of product is to use plasmids, which are circular DNAs, and insert the gene for the spike, put those into bacteria like E. coli, and use the fact that the E. coli double every 20 minutes to exploit that power and make tons and tons and tons of DNA for use for in vitro transcription reactions to make modified mRNA. So this was the upscaling methodology that they used to synthesize this modified mRNA that saved them a lot of time and it saved them a lot of money. But here's the thing. This isn't just mRNA that they were making in this in vitro synthesis reaction or in vitro transcription reaction. This was modified mRNA. So again, instead of uridines, which is one of the 4 bases, they substituted every single uridine in the sequence out for something called N1-methyl pseudouridine. And they did this for very, very specific reasons, which,
reproduce faster and made it cheaper to make more samples, I presume.
Well, no, actually, it was to make these transcripts more stable, basically, and evade the immune system, the innate responses like these things called toll-like receptors in the endosomes once they got into the cells. They were real smart about this. However, I don't think that they accounted for the fact that these things have higher melting temperature, which you don't need to know what that means. It basically, you can think of them as being really sticky. So once these bases bind to a complementary base, it's really hard to take them apart. So during the synthesis process, or the manufacturing process, the in vitro transcription reaction, when they threw in the N1-methyl pseudo-use, there were little bits of DNA from the plasmid, and there were also mRNAs being made. So what we think happened is that those DNAs and mRNAs hybridized, because this happens. This is not something that doesn't happen in nature. It happens in us all the time. We actually have specific enzymes to break these things down, because if you have an accumulation of them, it can be really bad for the cell. So if this happened and these little hybrids formed, then they're going to be really hard to take apart. And that's the problem, I think, because that their own end-of-line manufacturing requires the removal of lipopolysaccharide, which is a toxin associated with the E. coli bacteria, and all DNA, right? This is the most important step, because you don't want to introduce all that DNA that was in the plasmid or the plasmids themselves into the final product, because you don't want to do that to a human being, because introducing foreign DNA in lipid nanoparticles is probably a bad idea. Lipopolysaccharide will induce anaphylactic shock in many cases. Does that sound familiar? So what we think happened is at this end stage, their enzyme called DNase-1 didn't work on these hybrids or the DNA that was left over. Somehow it didn't get removed. You're supposed to break it up, chew it up, and then filter it out. Didn't work. So these things must have gotten packaged with the modified mRNA into the lipid nanoparticles, and that's why we're seeing them in the vials. So this is it's crazy, because and this goes back to what we were just saying about that headline and the sneaky use of language, because one of my slides that I show in my presentation about this demonstrates that the EMA knew that there was residual DNA in the vials, and they were trying to mitigate removal in, I think it was March 2021. Way at the beginning, they knew that there were excessive amounts of DNA. And so, in my opinion, what they should have done is stopped making these things, certainly stop injecting people with them until they really do mitigate that problem, because it has unknown consequences to human beings.
Just going to pull up one by way of example and close a couple of the tabs behind me. This is back in 2022. Moderna recalling batch after foreign substance found in CMO. And I think
that was the metal, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the metal one. Let me see here. Spike Vax. Yeah, so this was metal, but I mean, illustrating the problem of mass production at a rushed and no quality control rate. I got another one there. So who was it that first discovered DNA in the jabs, or when was that?
Kevin McKernan. It was years ago now, I think. If you go on OSF preprints, he's got all this written down. He's also documented all of it on his Substack, which is anandamide or nepalactone newsletter. He has these funny names. He used to work on the Human Genome Project. He has his own company called Medicinal Genomics. He's probably one of the most seriously mad, sick, intelligent people I've ever met. And he's really sweet too. He's a nice man and he loves cats, which is very important. He has two.
That makes him suspicious as hell to me. I'm pulling up all. By the way, everybody should understand.
Listen to him. I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Everybody should just go and Google the COVID vaccine recalls to see how many there have been for various reasons. They withdrew the AstraZeneca, they withdrew the Johnson & Johnson after being, after telling you for years it was safe and effective, after a few women died from blood clots. And now they're, I'll pull up when we start talking about Australia saying, those people with their crazy methods of determining DNA, they're all off. Trust us, it's good and safe and effective. We'll get there. Sorry. So the doctor who first discovered the DNA in the jab, it was early on in the administration of this mass campaign.
A couple years out, I think. I don't know. I can find the date, but he's the first one to say he's not a doctor, which I think gives him a lot of street cred because he went straight into industry. Like he makes sequencers. Like the guy is serious. I mean, he's kind of like supernatural when it comes to genomics. But yeah, he's not a PhD, which is probably why he's so talented because he didn't get brainwashed by academia. But I'm still peeling my own onion.
Well, there's the old expression that an expert is just someone who knows more and more about less and less. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so finding the DNA. I guess the question is, do you know what type of DNA? I mean, that's the question. Okay, and I think you do. It's SV40.
Yeah. So Kevin, in addition to discovering DNA, sequenced what was in there, and by the way, this was all done by accident. He was just looking for, I think, a positive control for some other assay he was doing in his lab, and somebody had sent him these Pfizer vials, and he realized, oh well, that might work as a good positive control. And it just kind of took it on its own life. Like, it's like once you see something, it's like you have to keep looking. And once you see it, you can't look away. So he sequenced the genetic material in the vials. And the first time he did this, he found that like 1/3 of the genetic material was DNA and not like it should have all pretty much been mRNA. But he was like, no, this can't be right. And so he redoes his own work. He told a couple other people who have labs, and that kind of got the ball rolling on reproduction. So, and yes, he did sequence it and found all sorts of stuff that doesn't need to be there, and a bunch of stuff that's kind of scary that it is. And that does include this SV40 promoter enhancer thing, because the SV40 enhancer is a known gene therapy tool. It's called a nuclear localization sequence. So it's a little bit of DNA that traffics stuff to the nucleus of cells. And like I said, it's used as a tool in gene therapy. And this is well documented. This isn't, stuff that's new. If anyone wants to look that up, you can go to David Dean's website. He's like one of the gene therapy guys in the world who's been publishing on this. And so the question becomes, why isn't this SV40 promoter enhancer that Kevin mapped onto the plasmid using the SnapGene software? Basically, you have little bits of of material, and you can use this software to create. It's kind of like reverse engineered plasmid map. So it shows you like where these elements are on this little circular piece of DNA. The one that Pfizer disclosed as part of a rolling rapporteur report does not show the SV40 promoter or enhancer. It only shows a T7 promoter, which is the one that should be there. This is the one that you use in the manufacturing process and as part of the in vitro transcription reaction. The SV40 does not need to be there at all. And the fact that it does have functionality, which Health Canada, one of the Health Canada reps we have in a FOIA requested email, is claiming outright that it has no functionality with no evidence to support that claim. There's no reason to believe it doesn't have functionality. And so the question becomes then, well, what is it doing? Is it trafficking stuff to the nucleus of cells? Is it trafficking these little DNA fragments that we know are in there?
I presume that if it's not doing anything, then it shouldn't be there. I'm just like, I feel like the scene out of Billy Madison, like the SV40 large T antigen is a hexamer protein that is a dominant acting oncoprotein. Onco, I know, has something that, well, I know that from oncology, which is cancer. I don't know what that means. Derived from the polymavirus SV40. None of this makes any sense to me. Someone on the YouTube chat had asked, if the lipid nanoparticle helping it get into the cells could cause cancer, and I think that's one of the major points of not contention, but discovery right now. What does any of this mean, Jessica?
So the large T antigen isn't a part of it. This is more of a problem when you have the whole virus. So we're not talking about the whole simian virus. We're talking about these elements that are basically used in biotech as promoters and enhancers to promote and enhance transcription as part of benchwork reactions. Okay?
Transcription. Tell me, remind me what transcription means in this context.
So that's the in vitro do you want me to bring up a slide?
Please. I think you can share a screen on your end there, eh?
Oops. I don't know. That's what I'm asking, because it would
give it a try. Otherwise, we still have no private text or DM in studio, but I think you should be able to share the screen on your end. Yeah, because transcription, I think I know what it means, but I'm not, or I think I understand it. And I presume that if I'm foggy, maybe other people are as well. Reverse transcription. We love charts, says Pure Blood Stallion. King of Biltong is in the house.
I'm going around here. Like transcription is going from DNA to RNA. So that's what this synthesis process of this modified mRNA utilizes transcription in vitro. That's why we call it in vitro transcription, in order to get that DNA, that starting material into the RNA form. So just wait now. Let me. I have.
Yeah, while you do that, I'll read a couple of tips over here on locals. Passion Moyer says, I think it's great that Adrian is in a slightly difficult circumstances in a public setting, but still able to come on the stream and educate us. No apologies needed. Then Gantit says, traditional, quote, vaccine is using the material of the inert virus to create an antibody to teach your body to fight it off. That's my understanding of what it typically was. mRNA technology is gene editing for a PhD biologist. Well, I'm not going to be... Gantit needs to learn how to talk politely. The similarities are that neither have been sufficiently tested for basic safety, says C-Wave Drive. And hey, David, your merch site is coming up not secure for some reason. I had a couple of other people check it, and it's the same for them. Maybe this it's not private. Okay, well, let me see if my certificate has not expired. I'll figure that out afterwards. Okay. Let's see what we got. While you do that, hold on. There were more recalls, people. Johnson & Johnson. Here we go.
I'm not going to do it. Never mind.
Johnson & Johnson recall. When was this? April 13. The CDC as well as the FDA recommended providers pause on administering the Johnson & Johnson vaccine after more than 6.8 million people received a one dose. It comes after 6 women who received the vaccine experienced blood clots. Oh my goodness! If okay, that was the J&J. Another job well done by J&J there. That was I remember that happened up in Quebec. There was a woman 42 years old and. Okay, what else did I have in the backdrop here? Well, we got to get into the Australian stuff in a second, actually.
Yeah. By the way, the CDC has, there's so much in my brain right now. I'm not going to try and screen share. It's wasting too much power of my mind. But yeah, the CDC actually have like rules as to when a recall is in order. So you need to have, I'm trying to remember now, adverse events popping out of pharmacovigilance databases, and you need to have some kind of like manufacturing issue, like DNA contamination would be a good manufacturing issue if it was exceeding their so-called levels. By the way, they are exceeding levels, and I should circle back to the fact that those levels are already too high because it's based on naked DNA. So yeah, the fact that some products have been recalled is good, but we have a basis. We have everything that we need in order to issue recalls on these modified mRNA products, which is like, it's cracked that it hasn't happened yet. And somebody, I did an NCI testimony the other day, the National Citizens Inquiry, and one of the panelists after, they do a Q&A, and he asked me, like, in a gobsmacked way, he's like, how is it possible that the regulatory bodies aren't initiating callbacks or recalls of these products if they're aware? And I'm like, I don't know. Well,
I know. I was thinking about it. They can't, because then it would be an admission that they were not just wrong before, but that they were lying before. Because for them to do that would be an admission of liability, but probably even more an admission of fraud. No, because I was thinking about it before we were going live. Like, it's too far gone now. They can't. The same people cannot recall them. So you have to get new people in who are going to recall them, and then investigate those who didn't recall it, knew that what they were saying was a lie at the time, and then had the data to know that continued use of it was probably problematic, to use soft language so I don't get in trouble. And not in trouble with YouTube, just in trouble if I said what I thought. Yeah, so no, they can't. It's too far gone now, and they're going to double down and triple down to the point where you still have Kathy Hochul, as recently as a few months ago, saying get babies 6 months and up vaccinated. I know it sounds young, but you got to do it. There's evidence of DNA contaminants. This was brought to the attention at a council meeting in Australia, but I want to bring up the government of Australia's response, which is contradicted by the fact check. Sorry, go ahead.
This is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which is like the FDA of Australia, or the Health Canada of, it's like the Health Canada of Australia. So these are the people that decide, whether or not a product is okay to put into people, for example. And this is exactly how they replied. Now, the motion was passed 5-2. So I had to learn what that means. It means that of the council, like Adrian's in this council, and I think he brought the motion forth, and it comprised 2 letters from Russell Broadbent, who's an MP in Australia, and the evidence of the analysis done by David Speaker on the Australian vials, which showed, I think it's 147 times over the limit of DNA. So there was a lot of excess. And so they, once they heard, they got this motion, the paperwork, and they also heard from people from the community.
Let me pause you. The motion was what? To investigate the excess amounts of DNA?
No, to present it to people. So they already had this analysis done. It was written up by Speaker. Russell had a letter addressing the issue. And so it was just, from my understanding, it was just bringing this information to more members of parliament, more policymakers, to the eyes of the public. So the motion was passed following this, I think it was a 2-hour session, hearing also people's firsthand accounts of being injured. The mayor himself actually said no. And there's some stuff going on there that, is like collar grabbing. But anyway, it was a vote, and it passed it through, which meant that subsequently there were going to be, I think, 537 other councils that were going to be brought this information in this package, this motion package. I don't know exactly what the words are, but so basically this was just going to be the evidence disseminated to the public so that people could at least know that there's a problem so that they can go test it in their own bloody labs or whatever. It's like, it's not like we were doing anything other than trying to bring the information forward so that perhaps a new decision can be made on its safety and, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, I suppose, the TGA came back with this terrible response. It was very patronizing too, the one that you just put up, because if they admit that there's DNA in these vials, even though there were only 3 tested, it's possible that when they test more, they're going to find it themselves, and then they're going to have to tell the people what that means.
What I loved is their explanation for this. So this is October 18, which is like Friday. First of all, it's the Therapeutic Goods Administration, so I presume that covers drugs and that this is not some gotcha, like they admit it's a therapeutic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got to read it for anybody who can't read this or listening on podcasts. It's aware of the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration, is aware of misinformation in recent media and online reports that claim that the COVID mRNA vaccines are contaminated with excess levels of DNA. There's a lot of modifiers here. They're not contaminated. They have DNA in them. They're just not contaminated. And their levels, not excess levels. Okay, this is not the case. Reports are based on studies conducted by a small number of laboratories that have attempted to investigate. Okay, fine.
Attempted. We only attempted.
What do I care if it's a small number of laboratories? What is it going to be done by everybody? That's how small laboratories discover a small problem, and you go look and make sure it's not a wide scale. While the TGA welcomes it and constantly reviews the latest scientific evidence, yada, 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 these recent studies fail to apply the required scientific rigor. We didn't test for transmission because we were moving at the speed of science. All right,
translation, we didn't do it in our labs, and any lab that isn't our lab isn't good enough. That's exactly what they mean.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find, they actually say that in here, selective reporting and method validation, which is exactly how they disqualify this by selective reporting. Some laboratories have chosen to report DNA levels using a test called fluorometry, which is known to overestimate DNA levels. Okay, well, so maybe they're overestimating. Go figure it out. This is because fluorescent dye. Yeah. Okay, fine. Methodology for testing medicines are evaluated and approved by regulatory authorities, which require. So we didn't do it. Issues with samples. Some of the studies use very small sample number. For example, only 3 vials. Well, if you find
it's because people's lives were being threatened. Whoever tried to do this for 2 years.
If it's in 1 vial, it might be in more than 1 vial. Okay, so idiotic laboratory status. The accreditation status of laboratories is unknown. Okay. This is a great way of saying we're not looking into this any further. Okay.
Yeah.
So bottom line, reputable scientists staking their reputation and their livelihood, confirming that there's DNA in at least 3 vials that they found. This was 3 vials of the shot itself. Was it Pfizer?
There were 2 Pfizer and 1 Moderna. Cold chain was good on all 3. The Pfizer vials were absolutely not used, not punctured, not tampered with, which is the other thing that they said. The Moderna was like the residual amount of product that had already been used, but the cold chain wasn't broken. So these were delivered on dry ice, and yeah, it's. Not only did they use the same quantitation methodology as these regulatory guys who check the levels of DNA, but David also used an enzyme that chews up mRNA. So they make a claim that, you know, this isn't a reliable method because you're going to get you know, a mixed up signal because there's a lot of mRNA. But he got rid of the mRNA. He used an extra step. So he not only like has just as reliable data as any of theirs, but it's way more reliable because he did this extra step. So anyway, I should mention that there's another follow-up summary that I think I participated in making. I can't even remember. Anyway, it's also posted on Russell Broadbent's website. And if anybody wants to go check out the point-by-point like takedown of that TGA response, which is, it's quite empty, and I'm not just saying that because
it's what is the word I'm looking for? It's patently superficial, patently empty as you read it.
Yeah, they're relying on the way outdated definitions and data. So there's a point by point. It's not here yet on my Substack, but it's a point by point takedown of their points. I do a very brief summary in the Substack.
Yeah, but it's very good because it's brief and it's understandable. This was the notice of motion that was presented. Acknowledges exhibits and findings as per attachments, and then it goes through the reports. Let me see here. Okay, fine. I mean, I guess we don't need to read it in detail, but this was what they presented.
So this just gives an idea of like what was included. So it was 3 things. It was the David Speaker report of the DNA analysis, the first letter from Broadbent and the second letter from Broadbent, for which, you know, there are 52 signatories, including myself. So we're just basically putting our names and our reputations, if you have one, I don't have one, on the line to endorse what David found. And, you know, it's Kevin's tested many vials as well. David's tested the most. We actually have a preprint on the go, which we're trying to publish, where we tested, God, how many vials? I don't know, 27 or something Canadian vials, and they all have DNA in them.
Well, it's the fact that it's only 3 actually is more astonishing, because if you pick 3 at random and they all had it, or if you pick 10 and 3 had it, I mean,
and they're different manufacturers too. So it's like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I mean, we got the hearing. I'm scrolling through this. I think we covered you know, the essence of the and I've shared it with
that's an interesting one you just went past. These are the council members and the mayor. So these are the 5 that said yes. Let's let the motion pass. And then there were the 2 that didn't. And the male is the mayor. And there was this hoopla that happened there. I don't know the details, but they were trying to get some movement on shutting down these products earlier. And there was a threat from the overlords to disband the council itself if they kept pushing it. So they stopped.
This is Adrian McRae right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and then so last names only. I'm looking at Rebello, the mayor. I wonder why I'd love to look into, follow some money to the naysayers.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is an article here. This is really funny. You should click on this if this is the one that I'm thinking of. I think it's the
Daily Mail. Looks like.
Let me see. I don't want to get this wrong. His name.
No, here I'll bring it up right here.
Yeah, Roger Cook. He's Western Australia's premier. Okay, so he's the premier of Western Australia, Roger Cook, and he's quoted in this article as saying the COVID vaccines are not dangerous, that the Port Hedland Council, for which Adrian is a member, has gone completely off the rails, quote, and he also said, listen to this, that they should stick to their knitting.
Yeah, I'm getting off this website because when they run ads, it just maxes out my computer's ability to think. So we're going back to your Substack. Stick to their knitting. Hold on, I gotta let the dog out of this.
It's like you almost. It's almost hard to believe that they would resort to insults. I mean, why would you say that if you're the premier of Western Australia? Why would you say that about council members of Port Hedland? It's just, it's so indicative of the state of mind. It's like you can't speak that way if you're a professional, in my opinion.
Well, it's I guess maybe it's the Aussie version of stay in your lane. Stick to your lane, eh? Maybe okay, never mind.
Maybe, but still, I mean, they're not knitting.
No,
it's trying to bring evidence.
It's condescending. No, it's condescending, it's belittling, and it's minimizing, which is exactly what they want to do with the problem. Is they shut the people up and don't bring it up again.
Yeah, well, their mistake.
It's just sort of, and you go through the breakdown, which we sort of understood as the weaknesses in their the weaknesses in the takedown from the TGA. So what are we looking actually here? What are we looking at in this graph?
Okay, so like you kind of alluded to before, there are these. Okay, everyone's heard that there's been an uptick in cancers, right? Like you either know someone who progressed, you know someone who got it. Young people are reporting cancers. Like basically any country that you look at right now, the cancer rates have increased since 2021. These are plots from VAERS, which is that vaccine adverse event reporting system from the US, normalized per million doses comparing flu to the COVID shots in 2019 to 2011. And this necessarily means that there are 33 times more cancer reports because it's per million doses, it's normalized. So there is more cancer. And if you look at the other graph, you can see that
I'll bring that one back, but just so that and it's an AI overview, but we know that it's true. Cancer rates have increased since 2020 in both the United States and worldwide. Number of new cancer cases in the US increased from 1.9 million to over 2 million. So that's whatever you want to call it, a 5% increase or maybe more. And then we've got here the number of new cancers worldwide was estimated at 18.1 million in 2020. The World Health Organization projects global cancer rates will rise by 77% by 2050, reaching 35 million. Okay.
That's horrific.
So that's horrific, and that's their data. So you know that they're, in as much as they are forced to admit that, that's AI at least aggregating it. Going back to your chart, so it's an objective fact. When I had on John Bodwin, like I say, all right, how do I steelman? I'll steelman it. How do we know that it's, people want to blame it on the jab versus the COVID infection, or not going to a doctor, or drinking, more during COVID, or the stress, yada yada? I was like, well, yeah, sure. We have no sample test population anymore, so they will always be able to fudge those potential causalities. But the bottom line, we understand cancer rates are increasing dramatically. And they say, well, it started before COVID, because when John was on, the article from the Daily Mail, which talked about cancer increasing in young people, well, they were actually starting like 2016, 2017. But even the curve of the increase went up exponentially. But attribute it to what you will. Now bringing it back to your chart here. So
yeah, so if you go one chart down, that's precisely what VAERS is showing. So this is 2018, 19, and 20 in the first three bars for all vaccines combined. These are the total number of cancer reports made to VAERS per year per 100,000 adverse events. So this is normalized to the total number of adverse events. Here comes my kitty. And then the right is only the modified mRNA shots from 2021 through 2023. And everybody knows that the uptake of these products was decreasing as time went on. Like the most shots were given out in 2021, right? So this is even more scary because the rate's going up. So it's absolutely what's being shown in pharmacovigilance data, well, at least in this pharmacovigilance database. And I'm being cat bombed.
Let me see it. Him. Let's see it. Let's see the cat. I mean, they're objectively superior animals to dogs in that pound for pound, they can destroy any dog of the same weight class.
And this one is in his own weight class. He's very
it's a beautiful, majestic animal in miniature format. Let me just see where my blind.
He takes up the whole camera.
Oh, here, my dog's on my here. Get over here.
Oh, look, Lemmy, look, there's a doggy. Oh, look there. Look
at Winston is just constantly angry. Yes, eat my chin. Oh, yeah. Okay, get out of here. He's got my mic.
Oh my God, he's so gorgeous. Look at this animal. How could anyone not?
Jess, hold on. Actually, This is the gratuitous pet show. I'd lift up Pudge is out now in the kitchen, definitely pooping on the floor. Let me bring somebody up here because we got Chet Chisholm in the house, who's actually bringing up an interesting point. It's worth noting that Health Canada has ordered the destruction of all old COVID vaccines. That sounds like destroying evidence, if you ask me.
That's exactly what I wrote in my recent presentation.
Yep. I know my brother tweeted, my brother Lion Advocacy on Twitter tweeted something out similar. Sent you a coincidental good news that is related. Well, I'll check that out. And then King of Biltong, while we're talking about the bad, let's talk about the good. Biltong is one of the most protein-dense foods in the world. This is not an ad, Jess. This is actually just Biltong, who's an avid follower, a supporter of the community. Biltong, it's prosciutto made out of beef. It's delicious. B12, zinc, iron, creatine, and more. Need a healthy snack? Get yours today. BiltongUSA.com. Viva 10 for 10% off. Game is available. They're definitely just discreetly pulling them, destroying them. That's a good-looking cat. Let me see if this. Oh, there we go. This is why cats don't like me. My piano teacher, when I was a kid, my earliest memory of a cat, Thérèse Gingras was my piano teacher, and her cat. I was like, oh, look at that, and she cut my hand. Oh, look at the cat's looking at me. Hello, kitty. No.
He is beautiful. This is a 14-year-old cat, and he still acts like a kitten, and he's really fat, but he's just so healthy. It's crazy.
He's amazing, and it looks like a miniature lion, like a beautiful thing. I just
Did
don't
you see
like. Well,
when you said lion.
Now he's looking at you for he wants some attention. Okay, am I angry? I think I'm angrier than I was when I started the morning.
Okay, so yeah, the evidence being destroyed is a good hypothesis because they were coming out with a new version in November, I think, in Canada, which may or may not have the SV40 in it anymore. So we're going to know soon.
Well, I was talking. I mean, at least trying to text or message in our locals community where they're discussing the shingles vaccine. I'm like, I'm at a point now where I got shingles right before COVID, actually. And it was very, very unpleasant. I had I still have, I think it's called post-herpetic neuralgia. Like the entire area where I had on my lat is still numb, and I get like massive itching just out of the middle of nowhere. But I'm so traumatized from all of this. I don't know if I want to go get the shingles vaccine. Like I'm traumatized.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, don't. It makes it worse.
Okay.
Don't. Like I'm not a doctor, but that's not something I would do.
No, it's like I know that I've had although I didn't get I got shingles. It was, I think I shared the picture. It was wild because it looked like it was shaped exactly like the continent of Africa on my back, and it very cool because it was literally on one side, and it was the itch. It was a big thing, like the size of a dinner plate. And
how long after your shot did that happen?
No, it did. This happened in right before COVID, oddly enough. And it's like,
okay, so it wasn't. Oh, okay.
Oh no, it was not related at all. This was like right before. Where had it been right after, or had it been after the thing, then I would have definitely associated two things. But
did your kids have any chicken pox or anything?
I had chicken pox as a kid.
No, but did your kids have chicken pox prior to your?
No, they not that I know of.
Interesting.
I'll tell you a story about that when we're offline about GPs recommend the vaccines that they recommend nowadays for. I had chicken pox. It wasn't a big deal at the time, but what do I know? Jess, so okay, well, so what?
We were on the evolution of the story of Port Hedland. So yeah, basically it was less than a week. It all happened real fast, but it's really gaining momentum, as you heard from the millions of people who are paying attention. This is, to me, the most leg we've had or foot we've had in the door, because a lot of people that you can't just shoo away are involved. Like, the people who signed this as co-signatories they're they're not hacks. They're like really serious oncologists, gynecologists, data scientists, biology, you name it. We're all there. And it's like, as you know,
I just need to clarify. I think the chat is thinking I'm contemplating getting the COVID shot. No, the only discussion is whether they say as you hit 50, go get your shingles vaccine. And my whole point is like whether or not it's by design or by accident. Like I now question everything I never questioned before. And just so everybody's clear, also this was 2000, right before COVID hit. This was not as a result of a reaction to anything. And it was the weirdest thing because I'm sitting. We're in New York. We went for a trip, and I just feel like itching randomly, and there's nothing there. And then someone said, that's what it is. Like, I'm not an old, what was he saying, an old woman. I don't know if it affects women more than men, but, and I'm reading some funny comments in the chat. Okay. No, this is going to it's not a question of going viral. This is going to be news because it's going to be the same evolution of how they deal with everything from the beginning. Deny, minimize, and then admit, but pivot. And so, it's going to turn out, there's no DNA, there's minimal amounts, it's not contamination, it's not causing cancer, and then 10 years from now, they'll have to reassess.
It's like this whole, like, I'm going to take a leap, see if anyone can follow me. It's when, like, Morpheus stands up in the cave in Zion, and he's like, no one's going to be afraid if they hear the truth, or shake your fear off by facing the truth, have a big party, and then, put your dukes up ready to fight because the fear is gone. It's kind of like that. It's like whoever seizes this opportunity, if Albo seizes this opportunity, he is not going to be on his own. He's going to have almost an entire country of people supporting him. Like the number of people who are trying to perpetuate this stupid lie and to protect the industry itself, the vaccine industry, are very small. It's the people who are taking the punches and the shots and losing their jobs and all this crap. And nobody doesn't know that there's a problem.
I know it is. I think my the sinister observation is that everybody knows there's a problem, but the people who have maybe administered this to their children on more than 2 occasions can never bring themselves to acknowledge it because it would be tantamount to admitting that they either put at risk or harmed the ones that they were put on this earth.
That's what I mean by facing the fear. The truth and the reality exists in spite of it all. So it's better to be, the people having the party in the cave and get it out of your system and admit it and just face the reality and the truth as it stands before you, because that's the only way forward for us. Otherwise, we're just living out our days cowering.
Well, no,
I'm not offense to anyone, but I mean,
what can happen hypothetically? A Trump administration, an RFK Jr. looking into it, and there's a massive overhaul, and maybe reversion, not a word, reverting to the traditional known definition of vaccines, the traditional method of developing and administering and bringing to market. And it's like an amazing thing. You're just like, oh, well, we can just rush all of this. It's like, you can't rush time. And there has to be, metaphorically speaking, I won't even say it, people need to be put in jail, period. So
yeah. There's no doubt. I was just on my walk today. I know that we're going on tangents, but who cares? It's been an hour and a half. I was thinking about like this Klaus Schwab comment about penetrating the cabinet. And I think I recall seeing that there are correct me if I'm wrong, half of the people in the Canadian Parliament have affiliations with the WEF. I think it might even be more than half.
It depends on how you qualify it, because the WEF does just set up landing pages with or without the permission of people, and then I think
really?
Yeah, like it was Vivek Ramaswamy that elucidated this. Is that they set up these landing pages, and they do it sort of like to say, like an agent says, look at all the clients I represent, but some of them are like, you don't take my name down. Most people don't do it.
But these are people who graduated from the WEF school, isn't it?
The young leaders, the young global leaders, those are definitely affiliated. I don't know what percentage of the Canadian Parliament. I mean, there's 338, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot, but it doesn't matter. Like a handful is too many.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And they're not representing, even if they're Canadian citizens. I was thinking about this today. They must be if they hold those positions, but they're not representing Canadians or Canadian government. They're representing the WEF's desired, and this is a private entity that has some very sketchy ideas about how we should live in the future. I mean,
they should have no place in any government, and there
No.
should be I think like dual citizenship. I think you should renounce the one that is not the country you were elected to represent if you want to act in government, and there should be no affiliation allowed between any elected official and an unelected global body. It's not rocket science. It's basically common sense.
Yeah, because things like treason can happen otherwise.
Things like what I believe Trudeau is doing is selling out the interests of Canadians to secure himself a seat on whatever global organization that he wants. I hear Ray J says half of the cabinet. Yeah, we have penetrated half of the cabinet. That's what he says, but it doesn't matter. If it's 10%, it's too much. If it's just Justin Trudeau and Scummeat Singh, it's too much. These are prominent people. If it's Chrystia Freeland's on the board of trustees, or was, of the WEF. If you don't know that, by the way, let me make sure that she still is. Let me see here. I got a Chrystia Freeland board trustee, WEF. The WEF, yeah. Oh, here, let me read it in the Klaus Schwab's expression. Here we go. Look at this. First of all, go watch the movie Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland from the 70s. She is the demonic troll at the end of the movie that slices Donald's neck. I just ruined the end of the movie. 2018 Deputy Prime Minister, blah, 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 blah. She was also awarded the Eric Warnberg Award for, what the hell is it? For achievement in strengthening transatlantic ties. In 2020, she was awarded Freedom House give these scum of the earth awards. She is a member of the Forum's Board of Trustees. This is the second most, if not the most powerful person in Canada on the Board of Trustees of a non-elected evil.
She's in charge of the money, isn't she?
Yeah. She was a Minister of Finance. She might have changed titles now. Oh, Jessica, where can people find you? Now that don't be black pill. I say for everybody who says, "Oh, Viva took the shot," and for the amount of things that we do in our lives that are not healthy. The body is an amazing thing that can recover.
It is. And this is probably why, going back to what you were saying, because it's so important. I mean, if you got the shots and you feel fine, you're fine. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know medical doctors, and they're also saying this. There's, the risk of cancer with the DNA story, which, maybe we can develop later. It's there, but it's not gonna happen just because you got the shots. Let's make that absolutely clear. Not, it's only there's only a percentage of people who suffered adverse events that were serious in the context of these shots. And we don't know why yet. So this is why we need to bring this to light without fear, without thinking that you're gonna die, nothing like that. Nothing is worse for your immune system than being stressed out. So being poised and intelligent and fearless is important. I know it's not it's easier said than done, but I think that that's an important thing to say. If you want to hear about the self-amplifying RNA story that we don't have time to talk about now, I recently gave testimony at the National Citizens Inquiry, which is posted on their Twitter site. It's got a gold star, not a blue star, because there's an imposter group as well. And I also posted it. So my Twitter is Jess Loves MJK.
Jess Loves MJK. And I want to bring this up. I unfortunately, I can't read the person's handle for obvious reasons, but PhD Jessica Rose is such an amazing intellectual warrior who drops gargantuan logic bombs of truth with every conversation. And then you got Pal, Brain, Pal. Thank you, please. Thank you very much for that. That's how Viva gets canceled, by reading the username on
I was going to help you out there because I thought you just couldn't read it. And I was like,
No. Every now and again, I get duped into reading somebody's name that I probably shouldn't read, but there's bad and then there's immediate cancellation. And okay. Send me the link. Send me the tweet. I'll put it on blast after this. Jessica loves MJK. I'll put all the links in the comment in the pinned comment. And your Substack is
jessicar.substack.com. Yeah.
Let me bring it up one last time. I'm going to stay live afterwards, Jess. If you don't mind, I got a couple of things to cover more. So Jessica,
my cat is like half on my pillow and half on the floor, like a blob.
Oh, Jessica R, like Jessica Rose. I am such an idiot. I'm reading Jessie Carr, like, oh, you must have been into cars at one point. Okay, so Jessica R, or Jessie Carr, as I like to say, on Substack.
Jessie Carr, yeah.
Jess, we'll do this again. Whenever there's news, you're going to come back on, and maybe one of these days we'll get to meet in person.
Yeah, I got to get my ass over to the States at some point.
I would say I'm not traveling much anymore these days. I mean, I'm going to stick to the States. I'm not even sure I want to go back to Canada for Christmas, but I might have no choice because my parents are going to say, David doesn't love us anymore. But anyhow, let's say we will meet one of these days in person.
You don't love us anymore.
Why do you don't call? You don't even drop in on the Zoom meetings on Sunday. Oh my goodness. My mother doesn't actually talk like that, but in my own head she does.
And definitely in my head now. David, you don't call us anymore.
Everyone's pictured like my mother looks like an older version of Woody Allen with longer hair. She talks very normally, my mother. Jess, thank you very much. It was amazing.
You're welcome, and pleasure. Glad Adrian was able to get on for a bit too, because yeah, it's I want to put this whole thing on blast because I really think this could be the beginning of the end, and it would be great because we've been working real hard here for years.
Okay, amazing. I'll do my best to put on blast. Jess, we keep in touch, and any news, you let me know. Now, I feel guilty. I'm going to kick you from the studio, but that's only because they call it kick. They should have said close. Jess,
kick.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye. Kicking someone feels so mean and rude. Everybody, that was amazing. Do not be doom-pilled, people. Exercise. First of all, I say like don't stress. I'll tell you what stress is going to be. My biggest concern in life is endless stress, endless. My wife said I have like ADHD, and she's a PhD also, so I take that as a diagnosis. She's like, I started boiling a pasta, and then I'm boiling pasta. Like I'm not productive enough. I go to my computer, then I forget that the pasta's boiling. Then I go to the computer to do something very specific, and then get distracted with other stuff on the computer, and didn't even do what I came to the computer to do, and then ended up burning the pasta. So. Serenity now. I might test my leg out and go for a bike ride this afternoon, because so long as I just move it up and down like that, it's fine. The only problem is if I have to do an emergency maneuver, then it hurts, and I pull it. I'm going to go to our locals community. Love in Two Limes says, I would have thought Viva learned his lesson with the COVID vaccine. Well, I know, and everybody's saying like, oh, it's the I had chicken pox as a kid, and so apparently shingles is the recurrence as an adult. The what is it called when something goes into hibernation? It resurfaces, and yeah, that's it. Corn Macabre says, Viva, bro, this is me 100%. That's why I like you, laughing my ass off. It's a blessing and a curse. I would say, an irritation for me, but a curse for everyone around me. And the other thing is like, I think objectively speaking, I have very full days, and I do a lot, and not compare. I just do like a lot of things, and it never feels like I'm doing enough. Like if there's a 5 minutes when I'm not doing something, especially if it's nice outside, it's like I could be exercising, I could be biking, I could be fishing. Don't overdo the exercises, maple syrup, 1, 2, 3. No, but I just need to get the energy out. All right, but I did have some other things that I wanted to talk about. First of all, Jess is amazing, and just amazing knowledge. And I have these discussions with people, and they say, well, Jess is not an immunologist, or she's not a who's going to get the word before I get it? Not a virologist, but an epidemiologist. Oh, Jess is not an epidemiologist. I was like, you MFers, like when I find the epidemiologist, you say, oh, well, he's a quack epidemiologist. Oh, well, he's not the heart doctor, a cardio surgeon or whatever, he's not a cardiologist. I'm pretty sure Asim Malhotra is a cardiologist. Oh, well, he's a quack far right guy, so we disregard him. So it's like, it's the ever-moving goalposts of disingenuous discrediting. He's not of the specialty that I need him to be. Oh, he is? Okay, well, I discredit him because he's crazy. So it's like the no true Scotsman theory, except it's the exact opposite of it. Viva, if you told us Jess was your sister, I would totally have believed it, says Corn Macabre. Viva, oh God, I can't. I'm not even going to entertain the people who solely want attention for being jerks. Although some people will call me a troll. So let's come back to Kamala, shall we? We'll end on a little bit of humor, and then I'm going to go over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the after party. How much does everybody want to make a bet that Kamala Harris lied about the McDonald's working at McDonald's story? I can tell you everywhere I ever worked. I can tell you the locations, not necessarily the address. And if needed, I could certainly pull up pay stubs or tax returns or photographs or at the very least, because everyone's going to say, like, how's Kamala Harris supposed to pull up a tax return or a pay stub from 1970s or 1980s? How old is she? She's 60? I think she's 59 is Kamala Harris. She's 60 years old. So 60. That's 40 years ago she's working. So that's like the late 70s, early 80s. How's she supposed to have a pay stub? You know what you definitely have somewhere is a resume on which you indicated, that you worked at a place. And I have every single one of my resumes. I can tell you all of the places I ever worked in my life. I went door-to-door sales, selling e-college E. It was recycled house products, and the shtick was that it was like students and university students selling it part-time. We worked on commission. I didn't last very long at that job, not because I got fired. I hate selling things. In high school, they called me Duddy Kravitz. I don't know why, because I've never read the book, but I used to sell Fimo to other high school kids back when I was in high school. And, some kids like, maybe make me a marijuana leaf of Fimo. So I would sit there like crafting marijuana leaves and I would sell Fimo, but I hated going door to door selling stuff. Ecology. Then I worked at a place called Black's Camping. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. It was on DeCarry and DeSalle. Black's Camping went out of business. I don't know if this is in chronological order. I worked at L'Accordé, which was a bike shop. Plein air is what they call, like an outdoor shop. Amazing stuff. I just ended up spending everything I made there. Worked at YCC as a rock climbing instructor and a counselor. Worked at Martin Swiss Bikes, still open on Victoria Street. Great place for bikes. Where did I work? I worked briefly at Lester's Smoked Meat. And I quit that job the day that I put my hands into a sink that had foamy water on it. And I didn't see that the spikes with which they grab the meat as you put it down the packing thing, the spikes were like in the bottom, and like, it was like that scene out of Butterfly Effect when, what's his name? Has a K in it. Not Jared Kushner. Ashton Kutcher, slammed his hand down on the pen things, the little paper things. And so I left that job after that incident and couldn't eat smoked meat for the longest times. She's a liar, period. The bottom line, she's a liar also because the default position with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, liar. And so let me see here. I'll bring something up here. It's fun stuff. And people are like, just tell, no, she worked there. How do we know that she worked there? Because she said she did. Who's this guy? Keith Edwards. I've been having fun with him on Twitter. I mean, I like it. He engages at least. A Dem strategist, social guru, 60 Minutes, always online. The New Yorker didn't immediately respond for requests. Fox News. Good for you, Keith. Keith says, Kamala started her career at McDonald's. Trump decided to end his. It's a very catchy interpretation of Trump kicking everyone's ass by Trump at that McDonald's, by the way, looked happier than as the expression goes, he looked happier than a pig in shit. I mean, he's sitting there smiling, laughing it up, a sincere smile. Do you guys know how you can tell if a smile is not sincere? And this applies to me as well. Let me bring this one out for a second. A fake smile is like this. First of all, a real smile, you can tell it's always in the eyes. The fakest of smiles, the eyes are dead, but the mouth is smiling. What was that from? It was Russell Brand in Get Him to the Greek, where he said, Your mouth is smiling, but your eyes are saying something different. She's a liar. And Keith, a Dem strategist comes out and says, yeah, that's a great quip. By the way, like when even the leftist of dirt rags, Snopes, has to say it's unproven, that's because she hasn't proven it. That's because nobody came forward to say, I worked with Kamala Harris at McDonald's. She doesn't have a manager. And I made a joke today, and it's a damn good one. I'm pretty certain she didn't work at McDonald's, because if she had, her manager at the time would go and say, yeah, she slept with me to get out of the weekend shift. Bada bing, bada boom. Viva for the win. So she's a liar, period. No evidence to support it other than her saying it. And she's a liar who's getting everything that she's getting all of her comeuppance in this political race. Oh, and by the way, people, hold on a second. We did one ad. I almost forgot to do the other. We're trying something new. I'm using Rumble Studio, and we're going to see if this works. The sponsor, the second sponsor, is 1775 Coffee. And speaking of Russell Brand, he might be making an appearance here. Let me see if it works, people. Okay. Fingers crossed. This is a first. I don't know if it's going to work. It's supposed to bring up a video. Let me see if it does. Fingers crossed. Is it going to work?
Rumble 1775 coffee is free from harmful substances and chemicals. It's also rich in flavor. The beans are sourced from high-altitude farms in Bolivia, roasted weekly in Miami, and delivered fresh to your doorstep. As believers in freedom, buying 1775 coffee helps fight back against other coffee makers that don't even care about you none. Join the coffee revolution and brew rebellion.
Yes, sir. Brew it, and let me know if you can hear me as I'm talking. So how did that work? Dude, I'm like the Rumble Studio guinea pig to some extent, but that worked very well. Let me see. Live chat. Did you hear me as he was talking? Let me hear. I'm gonna go to our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. Did you hear me while you did? Okay, awesome. So I should know not to. I was gonna make a dirty joke. I'll just say don't talk to myself while we're doing it. So that's cool. That's awesome. So that is now fantastic. By the way, go get some coffee. You could use promo code Russell. I don't know what his promo code is, but it's promo code Viva for 15% off and free shipping. Worked well. Amazing. Okay, this is it. Booyah. King Trump says Trump will definitely use his McDonald's experience to take a shot at Kamala at the next rally. But it was just, he looked so sincerely happy. And then these dumb, I'm not going to swear because I'm still being good. These dumb MFers get out on Twitter. No, I'm not going to swear. And they say it was staged. Okay, I'm a superficial person every now and again because I ratioed Keith Olbermann. I shouldn't say superficial. I'm a simple man. I enjoy the small pleasures in life, like ratioing that psychopath McGee, Keith Olbermann. Let me bring this up because it's just glorious. He's still, the funny thing is, I don't think he's ever actually acknowledged or replied to a tweet of mine, which is pretty good. I mean, I'll give him credit for not feeding the troll that is the Viva, because it would, yeah, damn right. If he blocks me, I'll use it as a badge of honor. But this was funny. Hold on, why can't I find it? You're in a cult. Hold on, I know that I replied to Keith Olbermann. Oh, here we go. Look at this. I know he saw it. I mean, unless he posts and ghosts. I know that he saw it. Keith Olbermann, Psycho McGee, who some people call Rosie O'Donnell lookalike. Some might also start calling him now, what's his guy's name? Mark Cuban lookalike. It's amazing how they all... okay, Rosie O'Donnell, now that I'm thinking out loud, Mad Cow, Keith Olbermann, Mark Cuban. You see a little similarity there. I see a little similarity in terms of what happens when you become an unhinged lefty in adulthood. I got the spinning wheel of death, so until it comes back. Keith Olbermann says, a reminder that the whole Trump McDonald's thing yesterday was fake. Just like him. The store was closed. Quote, customers were Trump cult members. They had scripts. They had rehearsed. I'm curious about the scripts and the rehearse part because I think that's probably... What the hell does he think they need to rehearse? Here are your fries. Let me make an innocuous joke as you drive through the window. Trump is... Oh, for goodness sake. What's going on here? Have I yeeted myself? Okay, sorry. I don't know. How's this happening here? There is nothing Trump won't lie about. To which I had to say, Keith, you're a psychopath of an idiot, but you mean President Trump, who survived 2 assassination attempts in 3 months, did not just show up at a random unvetted McDonald's to serve random unvetted customers? Did you figure that out all by yourself, or did you get help? Holy hell, you're an idiot. I'm going to see if he responded to it. I think he's made an active decision not to encourage my behavior, because if he responds to it, it would be encouraging my behavior. These people are idiots. First of all, I mean, and all of what do you mean? What do people mean by staged? That they had to secure the location? Yeah. Oh, great. Every rally is staged, you raging idiots. Script? What script do you think you need to say, here are your fries? And the joke that he says, that he looks into the car and he says, what a good looking family you have. Where'd they get it from? Oh, now I see. He's talking to the husband and then he looks at the wife. Do you know how many times I get that joke? Viva, you have beautiful kids. They certainly look more like your wife. Ha, ha, ha. Viva, you certainly married up. Ha, ha, ha. These are generic jokes. If anybody thinks they need scripting, they're idiots. But you can't script an authentic smile that Trump had on his face. It was a moment of actual, genuine joy. And my goodness, I hope, I'll pray that people wake up and realize that they were duped on pretty much everything. COVID, Jan 6, Russiagate, impeachment, Trump as a whole. I hope people wake up and realize he's not, never has been, and never will be the tyrant that they've created in their own minds. He was and always has been, up until 2015, been, I don't want to say an American hero, but an American, what's the word I'm looking for? Treasure? A national treasure? People loved him. They always loved him. But you run against the Democrats, and then they no longer love you. You criticize the Democrats, and then they indict you. And you think I'm talking about Trump. I'm talking about Eric Adams now. Oh. All right. That's good. I think we had a good time today, people. I hope you had a good time. Oh, there was a CommieTube rant that I wanted to get to. Let me see. Oh, here we go. There's a couple, actually. Nancy Copeland says, do all the batches have DNA in them? I think I can answer this for Jess. They don't know because they haven't tested all the batches. But one can determine, assuming that the tests are accurate, that if you just pick 3 and all 3 have it, or you pick 3 random ones and the 3 random ones have it, you can probably surmise that it might be more of a widespread problem than initially thought. And the way Jess described that rave scene from The Matrix, I never understood it for what it was, but I admittedly also haven't seen that The Matrix. I think that's from the second one, which I did not like. Those customers can sue for defamation. Oh, no, that only goes one way. Violent event denial? That only goes one way. Who said that one? That is Theophrastus 3.0. Good to see you again, Theophrastus. One old guy's opinion says, I bet there are people around that say she is a 304. I bet there are people around to say she is a 304. I don't get that. Cackling, Comrade, Kamala, Tim the tampon sucks. There's no question about that. Trump worked the drive-through the other day. Oh, it's so great. And that picture that they have, it's a very beautiful photograph. Symmetrically, the 2/3, the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's Trump leaning out the window, smiling, and then there's a gray wall on the other side and a nice divider. It's beautiful. One old guy's opinion says fascist authoritarians around the world. I'm just reading a lot of stuff here. Viva shingles is not chickenpox. No, but this is from Dar S. But shingles is the revival of the resurfacing of the chickenpox virus as an adult. I'm fairly certain about that. Those customers can sue for defamation. And then I missed a Viva that was highlighted here, but so I missed that. Okay, and then we're going to go back on over to Viva Frei on Rumble. Outdoor Noble says, do you know why Harris says, let me finish all the time? Because usually that's what she hears right before she gets a promotion. Not bad. Not bad. Let me go ahead and just screen grab that so I can steal it for later. And if we go over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com, let's see what's going on in the chat over here. Oh, 304. I paid you 304 because she's... Okay, Robin Sage, I don't know what 304 means. RP Murphy says, yes, shingles comes from you having had chickenpox as a child. Yeah, we all had chickenpox. In fact, now that I think about it, pretty much every person I know, an adult that I know, has had shingles as well. Let's see what's going on here. There seems to be some discussion. Okay, so we're going to end it and come on over to Viva Barnes Law. .locals.com. So let me go see here if the Viva Frei, it says it's getting your connection is not private. What does that mean? Not back to safety. I just want to go to advanced. Your connection is not private. That's interesting. I'll have to go check my computer, guys. So if you want to get some merch, I guess you can't get any today. And that is it. Everyone, who am I to tell you to get out there and register people and vote? I want to have Scott Pressel on because I understand that he's doing amazing work. Vote. I would say vote early and keep receipts and get people to vote. Make this a movement where people are going to go and say, I voted for Trump and I'm proud to vote for Trump. I never tell anybody who to vote for. Period. I do, however, say that if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're an idiot. That's just a matter-of-fact assessment. If you vote for Justin Trudeau, you're an idiot. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just telling you that if you vote for scoundrel criminal idiots, you're voting for a scoundrel criminal idiot. Go ahead and vote for them if that's what you think is in your best interest. Like that woman on Twitter says, I'm voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for the future of my son. You're condemning your son to a future of indebtedness to foreign nations. And now that I actually say this, did they just approve 400 million Ukraine? Did they just approve 400 million more for Ukraine? Yeah, I believe they did. Check this out, people. Just like that. You vote for your child to be indebted to a foreign country so you can fund your proxy wars. Presidential Drawdown Authority package, which has an... Okay. Today, the Department of Defense announced additional security assistance to meet Ukraine's critical... There are people dying in North Carolina still. Georgia. People who've lost everything. Struggling to survive. And this is a spitting in your face and a kick in your groin. The announcement is the Biden administration's 68th tranche of equipment to be provided from the Department of Defense inventories for Ukraine since August 21st. The Presidential Drawback Authority package, which has an estimated value of $400 million, will provide Ukraine additional capabilities to meet its most urgent needs. Good, everybody except Americans. You scumbag pieces of crap. Okay. If you're so inclined, come on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. If you're not, I understand. I will see you all tomorrow. Here's the locals. It's going to be for supporters only because we are using Rumble. Snip, clip, share away. Oh my goodness, I forgot. Tony, I forgot to put up the clip of the Department of Defense. Oh crap. I got to go post up a highlight right after this because it's relevant. Go. Enjoy the day. I will be live tomorrow, 12:30. See if I just stretch my leg out. I'm an old man, people. This is going to heal once that tendon is rock hard. And vote. Get out there and vote and get people out there to vote. Register. See when you can early vote in whatever state you're in. Get out there. Take 10 people. Make sure they take out 10 people. Take 10 people out to vote. Make it a freaking... It will not be a... what's the word I'm looking for? Landslide like Reagan-Mondale. Barnes, Robert Barnes, our Sunday show, Big Brain Barnes, he's got a good reason for why you can never have that type of a landslide again, like every state but Minnesota going to Reagan. But you can have a modern day landslide. A popular vote, decisive popular vote, and decisive electoral college with a few states that no one thought were swing states. Decisive. Make it decisive. People are proud to vote Trump. There is nobody that I've ever met on this green earth that said they were proud to vote for Kamala. And whether or not they choose to hold their nose as they say and do it behind the privacy of their own ballot box, I don't think many of them are going to be doing it. So get out there, do it. Thank you for being here. Jessica Rose, give her a follow. And we are heading on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. It's going to take 30 seconds.